What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary back with another video, and in today's video I'll be talking about a former Jet sharing what went wrong for the 2023 New York Jets, as well providing some hope for the future, and the future as early as this year for those New York Jets. Randall Cobb was on a podcast, Bussin' with the Boys, which is hosted by Will Compton and Taylor Lewan, former teammates. They had Randall Cobb on to talk about his NFL career, and they spent about 10 minutes talking about the New York Jets and what it was like being a part of the 2023 Jets season. Naturally, he was asked about what it was like losing Aaron Rodgers, unfortunately, just 4 plays into the season. He gave an answer, and you could just tell how close both Randall Cobb and Aaron Rodgers are. Not breaking any news here, but that is very clearly what derailed the New York Jets last year. And you could kind of just tell by the reaction of Randall Cobb and really the entire Jets team. Like, that was such a weird game in week 1. Yes, they won against the Buffalo Bills, but you had that thing laying, in the back of your mind, looking at what happened. Is he going to be able to come back? How long's the timeline? How bad's the injury? Just everything, with that night was just so tough and so emotional. And for that team, I think it really took a toll on them, as not only Randall Cobb, but Garrett Wilson's talked about it, Breece Hall, the defense. It was just really, really tough on them, unfortunately. But Randall Cobb also talked about the Jets' youth on the offensive side of the ball and defense too. He said, quote, "by far the best defense I've ever been around," which is really not surprising. They were an elite unit last year, and also he spent a large portion of his career in Green Bay. They didn't have the best defenses during that stretch, and that cost Aaron Rodgers probably another Super Bowl during his time there. But some really high praise from Randall Cobb, who, even though unfortunately things didn't go well for him with the New York Jets last year, NFL veteran who is well respected around the league and had a really nice career, hyped up Breece and Garrett, talking about the two of those guys, and that's going to be the focal point of the Jets offense. I think Breece is going to prove to be the second best running back in football behind Christian McCaffrey this year, and I think Garrett Wilson has a really big year if Aaron Rodgers is back and fully healthy. Randall Cobb also talked about Zach Wilson last year and his confidence, and while he didn't ever really come out and say Zach Wilson didn't have confidence, it was strongly inferred with his answer, talking about going through it in New York his first 2 years. Looked like he was going to be able to sit, and he wanted to see Zach Wilson sit for the year. And then being thrown right back into the fire was hard on him, and hopefully things are different for him in Denver, which I do hope things go differently for Zach Wilson in Denver. I don't have any ill will towards him. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. The Jets decided to move on. I think that was the right decision to make, and most people did want to see Zach Wilson sit for last year, which is why so many were critical of not having a QB2 so that you could essentially redshirt Zach Wilson. The Jets luckily did not make that same mistake in 2024. They drafted, a developmental quarterback this past year in Jordan Travis, which I'm excited about, but it's not like their plan is for Jordan Travis to be QB2. They also signed Tyrod Taylor for, that role. And if, God forbid, Aaron Rodgers has to miss some time, then you're going to a quarterback who has a bunch of starting experience, number one, and also has served as a backup over the last few years and done really well in that role. You also had Randall Cobb say coming into this year, they have the pieces, and he thinks it's going to, everything's kind of going to come together. And something else he added too, that they were missing, I guess, last year in a way. Not that he said we were missing this, but let's be honest, we all have eyes. The additions they made on the offensive line, they draft Olu Fashanu in the first round, and they sign Tyron Smith and John Simpson in free agency, and they go and trade for Morgan Moses, and now your starting line of Tyron Smith, John Simpson, the young Joe Tippmann, AVT at right guard, and then you go to right tackle and Morgan Moses. They're doing a much, much, much better job of helping Rodgers on the line and keeping him upright this year, which I think is obviously something that's super, super important. That's going to be the key to success, health, and more specifically Aaron Rodgers' health. But their pieces on the offensive line is something that he added and discussed on why the Jets could be successful this year. And then finally, the question that seemingly everyone wants to know is, could Aaron Rodgers actually have played last year, or were they like way overblowing that? And he talked about, the kind of throws that Aaron Rodgers was making in practice the last couple of weeks. And he's like, unfortunately, if we won a couple more games and we're still in contention at that point, I do think he would have played. They asked him about, like, could he have played on wild card weekend? And Randall Cobb said absolutely. He brought up an example from the Packers in 2014, when Aaron Rodgers came back from an injury and played in a playoff game. And honestly, I don't disagree. I'm not saying he would have been at 100%, but I think he showed with how he got back on the football field and how he worked in practice. I think he could have made a legitimate run at it. And it was unfortunate that the Jets didn't stay afloat, and that's part of the reason why I was so mad at the Jets last year and just the situation, because they left a lot of wins on the table. There were a lot of winnable games last year. Vegas jumps out. The Chargers game jumps out. The Falcons game jumps out. And there's the New England game in week 3. Plenty of games were there to be had because the defense was playing so well and keeping them in the game. And unfortunately, the offense couldn't do a damn thing, which was just really frustrating. And Randall Cobb talked about, like, they would get the ball at the 50-yard line and be like, please, can you just get 15 yards and get into field goal range for Greg Zuerlein? And it's like, that's a really tough place to be for a team. That's the Robert Saleh race to 20 comment. Like, they really had zero faith in that quarterback room last year behind Aaron Rodgers, which was unfortunate. It really was, because that was a really good football team. And it felt like a repeat of 2022, which was the second year in a row that the Jets were held back by quarterback play. It's unfortunate, but hopefully that's not the case this year. I thought these comments from Randall Cobb were interesting, so I wanted to share them. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I'm Matt O'Leary. I'll catch you guys next time.